Hi, welcome. Let's do a brief sound check.
Hello.
Can you hear both myself and the beautiful Aaralyn?
Hi, guys.
Once we get a confirmation that you can hear us both, we'll begin. I'll keep talking until someone says they can hear me.
Okay. Thanks, Anya.
We're like, na, 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 na. Okay, good. So I'm here with Aaralyn Dukes. You can find her at alanaheavenly.com. She's been in my mentorship program for years now. She's amazing. Yeah, she's incredible. You will love her. She's an incredible multidimensional channel and spiritual teacher in her own regard. So you can find her at alanaheavenly.com, and you can find her there on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube as well under that name. Okay. Holy goodness, I might sneeze. I don't know what's up with all the pollen. So if I start sneezing everywhere, just bear with me. I'm going to share some pre-channel material. I have to do that when there's so much information that's coming through a council of, I don't want to say 9 beings, it's 9 essences of literally thousands of types of beings, one of which is Ra, so Kitarra is another one who is a Lyran feline ambassador for that unique council of Lyra, representing Lyra or Lyra, however you call that. And that is also a fractal of my essence. She's kind of like the baby of the council. Let's put it that way. She's happy and excited to be speaking and always very, very positive and a little bit scientific because, again, we're talking through Ra and the Council of 9. The Ra Council is uniquely scientific in the way that they speak. But sometimes information comes through that I just need to throw at you before I go in channeling. So for the past few weeks, this information has been coming through both from Kitarra and Dolores Cannon. So we'll get more of a deeper overview in my Dolores Cannon channeling coming up on May the 20th. Again, that's not a Patreon channeling. You'll have to find that on my website. But we're going to be discussing that in depth. So if you will notice that I have attached for this class a particular chart, okay? And it's attached at the bottom of this class, and you can look at it later. So we're going to go over the 3 waves of volunteers in relation to the 7 archetypes that Kitarra and the Council of 9 have identified from the ancient original beings on this planet. And I'm going to be telling you what they are, all 7 of them. I also have a YouTube on this, and we're just going to go over that really quickly, okay? So wave 1, the first wave of volunteers. You have the builders, the planters and seeders, you have the recorders and researchers, and the guardians. Pretty much in that order for wave 1. For wave 2 of the volunteers, you have the recorders and researchers, you have the containers, you have the seekers and finders, and sometimes the keepers. The keepers can be any wave, by the way, of volunteers. And for wave 3, you guys are a little bit unique. You are seekers and finders or keepers. So it goes that way. Seekers and finders, and or keepers. Kitarra corrects. So you can be seekers, finders, and keepers. So seekers and finders are 1 wave. They are either 2 or 3, and they can also be keepers of ancient knowledge, just holding things safely. Okay. The missions for the archetypes, for the builders. Your unique missions and roles. You are transducers. You transduce energy for this planet. You are a bridge of consciousness for forgiveness to happen. Your life purpose on this planet and your contracts entails forgiveness. Planters and seeders, you are catalyst. Your purpose is acceptance and surrender. Okay. Recorders and researchers, you are activators. Your purpose is allowance and trust. Containers, you are transmuters. Your purpose is flow of what? of the I am or isness. You are I am people. You're in the I am flow technologies. Seekers, finders, you are reflectors. You are here to reflect back information, to show people mirrors of who they are. Your purpose is love and compassion. Keepers, you are transmitters of information. You're very light ridden. You basically take light and transmit it out, information out to the world. Your purpose is celebration, joy, bliss, play, all of that. Guardians, you are here for restoring. You are restorers and resonators. So you find what resonates energetically and frequency rise, and then you take that information and you restore people back to their original blueprints. So your purpose is grace. Okay, you'll find that chart. It's just attached to this class. You can ask as many questions about it in the Dolores channeling if you want, or in this channeling. Now we're going to move on to technologies, because I promised you that I would bring you 4 specific types of technologies. So it's a lot of fun, but the thing about these technologies I'm just going to give you the beginning information about them as opposed to the how to do it. I'm going to give you as much basic information that Kitarra has taught me over the years about these 4 technologies. They are light and sound technologies from the ancients of all of those archetypes that we've just discussed. And I'm going to be holding up a little chart for you to kind of understand these technologies here in a moment. And then you can ask as many questions as you like about that and ascension and how they work with ascension and how they work with anything related to ascension thereafter once I go into trance. So one of the basic technologies that has been around for a long time is the breath of light technology. So I call it the breath of light is life. So I'm just going to repeat that out for you, the breath of life. And you're going to chant this affirmation within the breath of light technology. The affirmation is the breath of light is life. Doesn't that feel good? It kind of has a little ring to it. This particular affirmation is something that we've been chanting while breathing and using unique crystal technologies since the beginning of what you know of as time on this planet. So chant that for 3 times. And there's various ways that you can do this. You can chant this while focusing on your own breath. You can chant this while focusing on breathing this breath into the visage or image of another being. This is where ancients on this planet learn to breathe into others' mouth, and we call that now CPR. This is where this comes from. So it can be actually used if you're trying to resuscitate someone as well. So that's where that degree of CPR comes from. Okay. So the breath of light is life. It's something that Kitarra taught me a long time ago when I was a teenager and I was a lifeguard. This is when I learned this technology. Someone literally did almost drown and I had to resuscitate them. And she said, I want you to imagine a time when you were a druid in an ancient forest, in the lands of Ireland, what you know of as Ireland. And I want you to envision their body lying there as a log. And there are holes in the log. There are different variations of the log, sometimes knots and holes and things like that. And the hole is the mouth. And there are various other holes in the body that breath is also going to go outwards to. And these are just holes in the skin and in the chakra systems and wherever they're going to show up. So chakra systems, when they're depleted, show up as energy gaps or holes, if you will. So in this technology, I had to quickly, this is the first time I used it, someone could not breathe and was just out and turning blue. And they had been under for a while and no lifeguard got to them except me. And it was a huge pool. And when they brought them up and brought them to me, I had to imagine their body lying there like a log and that their mouth was a log. And I had to breathe into their mouth literally. And you can visualize this as well, because not everybody needs physical CPR. Okay, so you can visualize this, shamans and healers. So I had to say every time I would, lifted up the back of their neck as you standardly do in CPR, and I held their nose and I breathed into their mouth. And then it was different. CPR was different back then. So we had to do that 3 times. And then we did the pressing on the chest 5 times. So there was 3 and then 5 and then 3 and then 5 in that way back then. CPR is different now. So anyway, while I was breathing into their mouth, I imagined their whole body as a log. And as I was breathing, I imagined that the breath is incandescent. So sort of like an opal, if you will. I'm a crystal freak. So I imagined the breath being very opalescent, just incandescent, just full of life. And that my breath had tiny little incandescent particles. And I imagined my breath to be full of these particles of light, and that light will show me where more breath and light is needed in the body. So every time I would breathe into that log, if you will, I was visualizing their body as an ancient log, then other little energies would come out of the other end of the log or in various portions of the log. So, and they were showing me this because in an ancient time, I had literally practiced this technique on a log when I was, a baby druid, if you will, just a little girl learning about how to bring trees to life. And I literally breathed into a log, and the log got up and walked away and said, "You're a pretty wise being. Thank you." And it started talking, and it was a little tree walking away from me. And I was so surprised, I think I about peed myself. But regardless, that was my first experience a long time ago with this technique. And you can do this literally during CPR. You can do this while visualizing healers that your client, Reiki masters, that your client is lying down. You can visualize this in any way you can, and that you do that while saying the breath of light is life over and over and over again in your mind. The breath of light is life. And visualize yourself breathing into their mouth. Okay. And visualize your breath is incandescent, and those little particles of light are going to show up, that they are radar lights. They're just going to show up where the healing needs to go. And then the more you breathe and say that breath is going to go where it needs to go. And the light is literally going to activate someone at a cellular level exactly where that activation needs to happen. So it's one of my more powerful technologies that Kitarra taught me when I was a teenager. The second technology, as you probably are aware, is sound. I like to sing to water, and I like to use particular source tone vowels. So those source tone vowels, you will recognize this, English teachers, are A, E, I, O, U, except that they are variations of those vowels. So you have A and A, E and E, you have O, and then you have Hu, not just U, it's actually Hu, H-U, which is a sound of the breath of life. So Hu is an actual technology. You also have NRG, which is a unique technology that when you sing in this way, when you sing NRG, it actually sounds like you're saying So you're going to purse your lips together and you're going to say and you're going to breathe over water. You can breathe this over a river, a stream. You can breathe this particular source tone over land that you think has water, and then dig and water will be there. So this is how, when my children and I hike and I don't bring water, which I do often to show them this technology during the summer, we will find water with this unique technology. And I've been trying to teach, especially Eli, my little Eli, this technology for a long time. And if you get that right, you can find water wherever you are. If you're lost in a desert, things of that nature.
Does your tongue have to be in a certain position when you're saying the erg?
It doesn't necessarily have to, but I found that it's helpful that it is at the roof of your mouth, like not necessarily touching the top palate, about a centimeter below the top of your mouth, and also about a centimeter behind your top teeth right here. Okay. So sounds like, NRG sounds like this. Okay, so that's a practice, an overtone practice, which I learned from my vocal teacher, Stuart Pierce. He's amazing, isn't he? Mm-hmm. So, and then and then and then m itself, and then hum. Okay, so all of those. And we're going to talk a lot about how to blend these technologies and which source tones go with which. My favorite way to sing to water is NRG, and then a unique variation of Hu and M for and E. So that particular technology is hum, E, hum. So when you sing it, it is hum, me, hum, me, hum, me, hum. Okay, except you need to hold that M by putting your teeth together. So that's hum. The M is stronger on and hum when you have your teeth together. Okay.
And you're always doing this out loud?
No, you don't have to be.
You don't have to.
You don't have to be. So all of those things. Another technology is ong, O-N-G, with then that sound technology. And the other one is, and you know this one well, A-U-M or O-M, and sat nam, which is pretty light and sound-based technology, which has been around for a while too. But all of those hummy hum and and sat nam are actually mantras that come from the original source tone technologies. That's why I can call them technologies, because mantra comes from that. Buddhists use these technologies. Ancient Sufi masters use these technologies. Indian yogis use these technologies. They're all over the world, and that's where they come from. They come from the original source tones. Okay? Any questions about that, guys? You have a question, Aaralyn, about it?
Not yet.
Okay. So singing to the light and through the light. This is a fun thing that you can do. You can imagine, didgeridoo players probably know what I'm about to say. So people who sing into the didgeridoo, there's a reason for that. Your voice becomes light, it reverberates in a certain way, and whatever container you have, whether it's a didgeridoo or not, you can just envision it being a container or an essence. When you sing to the light, you push light through something. So you can take your hands, okay? This is the technology. Your hands are somewhat upward like this, okay? I remember the first time one of my children did this with their hands. It was Cole, my oldest. And I have a black and white picture of him doing this, and he kept doing that. And I'm like, what is he doing? Children just know things. That is an ancient technology. So when you do this with your hands and you sing and you push light through or breathe light through it. Have you ever seen a shaman go or shoo, shoo? Yeah, I know that hurts your ears, so I'm not doing it much because I can get real powerful with my breath. But these are things that when utilized with this particular motion with your hands, you are directing light and pushing light through a container. So when you do that, you could do that with an animal. You can put your hands around an animal. You can visualize a person being here in your hands or an animal. You could put your hands on someone in a particular way to work with that. You can change your hands to this. Here's another portion of this technology, which I use in my Melchizedek hand technique. Okay. So the Melchizedek hand is a little bit like this. Okay. And you basically use this as a compass, turning it this way, and the person is lying down, or you can visualize them lying down. You begin to breathe into it and send light through this triangle. So this actually balances and clears the body. Don't worry, we're going to talk about this in deep detail in my upcoming class and channeling about the Hopi. So there's some information coming up with the Hopi that is going to teach you a lot more about this stuff. Okay. So there's that plant, animal, person. You can actually lift plants out of the ground and help them grow faster doing this way. You can take a seedling and make it grow very fast doing this technology. So we're going to get further into that third technology through the channeling of the Hopi. Okay. And then the final one, crystal programming with a formation. Okay. We're using water, fire, and these sound technologies all together. So when you use breath to utilize the sound technology and fire and a blessing of water, it looks a little bit like this chart right here. All right. Can everybody see that? I can't really. Can you see it? Do I need to lift it up?
Can you move it to your left? Yeah.
Okay.
And then up a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for those of you who want to take screenshots of this, maybe one of my assistants can take this and make a chart out of it. If you guys don't mind, it would be helpful to attach later. So with this technology, you're going to take quartz points. Are you guys done with your screenshots? If so, that's good. Okay. You're going to take quartz points. You guys who are crystal freaks like me, they just are pointers. They're quartz that have a point on the top. And you're going to move them in this direction. One quartz point is going to be going this way at the bottom. Another one is going to be going this way because this pulls energy into the center. We're going to put 3 quartz points here that are pointing upward. We're going to put 3 quartz points here that are pointing with their points upward again. And then we're going to put copper of any variety on top. You can build a pyramid in this way. Pyramid technology is what we call this. Or you can put this on the ground in the shape of the pyramid. The point is, when you do this, you're going to have fire. That could be sage, a bowl of incense, anything that's sacred to use. You're going to have your sacred fire or censer over here. You're going to have your blessed water over here. So do you remember when I was talking about singing to the water? You're going to sing to the water in technology number 2 that I just went over and put that water in a wine glass or a chalice. Okay, back in the time we used a chalice, but we're a little bit more modern. Many of you drink wine. Just pull out your favorite wine glass and put some water into it. It'll be just fine.
For my goblet?
Yeah, goblets, chalice, anything you have. I really like blue. I really like that you have that because that really works well. So I put that to the right of my pyramid formation, copper on top. And now when I breathe into this technology, this sacred blessing, I'm going to put forth an intent. So as I'm singing these little songs, whether it be or hum me hum, these are my favorite ones to use in these technology, I actually breathe that sound towards the pyramid or through it. So that's just my intention. That's why we call this sacred intent, because my intention is to take that source tone and breathe it into the pyramid or through it, using it as a tool for healing of myself, a plant, an animal, a human, or a collective. I put this around someone's entire house before and had vast healings within it. For some of you who would have worked with me on sacred grids and living grids that I used to do, this is why it works. Okay, that's one of my secrets there. All right. I'm gonna get out of here. Yes, light the incense. I'm gonna get out of here for now and go into trance, and you can speak to Kitarra and the Council of 9 with all of your questions.
I'll see you on the other side.
Oh no, shoes again.
I was going to remind you, but I didn't.
This happened last time too. Don't have shoes on. Guitar's going to take them off. Okay. Got it. All right. I am Kitarra speaking on behalf of the Council of 9. Thanks for having me again. Hi.
Hi, Kitarra. We're so happy to be in your presence.
You're so powerfully cute.
You too. Do you have an opening message for us, or should I jump into the questions?
Oh, that's not exactly relevant for us on the council. You may begin where you wish.
Okay. Our first question is, how was life on Earth created?
Oh, just jump right in, why don't you? While that may be a complicated matter to address within the current states of confusion on your planet, we can begin here. Your planet, if you will, was a nitrogen dust bowl, just spewing various degrees of nitrogen, not an incredible amount of oxygen, if you will, that had to be created from other elements that we brought in throughout the exemplary nature of the Council of Nine and the teamwork with other various collectives. We most certainly aren't the only ones. However, we began to implement such ether-based technologies for the creation of oxygen in the beginning times of your planet millions of years ago, around 500 to 6,000, corrected, 500 to 600,000 years ago in your time-space continuum, we began to find it necessary to create oxygen and thereby water, which was the first elemental state of life upon your rather dense planet. And at that time, we began to master the use of such elements in order to create the other elements that were necessary for life's function. Of course, from these elements of wind or breath, earth, fire, and water, we began to create the first beings on this planet, which were second density plants. From this nature of elemental existence, we began to work with these plants to create second density human beings and other types of beings which were created functionally in your environment and which were harvested from other natures of beings in various collectives when their second and third density life environments were not working any longer for them. They attempted via the nature of transmission of telepathy to transmit their genetic nature to your lands, earth, air, and water. Your first original beings were created from elements and were transferred or harvested, if you will, through a process of cycling or ascension from other universes and other galaxies within your own universe. So we realize that might be incredibly confusing, but you essentially came from various collectives in this universe, various star systems, not just one, and life was created on your planet from elements. So here's another way of looking at it in a simply put way. Your evolution is accurate, being that evolution from the water is accurate, evolution from other ancient beings on this land, created from earth and fire, is accurate. There are various types of evolutionary processes, and through the process of harvest and ascension within other galactic natures in this universe and outside of this universe, that really isn't evolution, it's just a transfer of essence. So, simply put, it's a complicated nature.
What other types of essences were humans based off of?
So, let's begin with just one particular type of entity or essence, if you will. They were second and third density beings from a planet that you know of as Mars. There was quite another set of third through fourth and fifth density beings to a planet that you knew of at that time as Venus. There were many beings coming, at least for help, from the Saturn planet, and the Council of Nine resides within the 8th density octave of the rings of Saturn. We are helpers, guardians, and keepers of your planetary environment for all planets within this universe. We work with many other councils. However, we notice life began in an essence of construct of elemental creation, as prior discussed, and through the process of harvest from Mars and Venus. In their ascension process, there was a great destruction on Mars, if you will, and beings that you know of through the sound complex Maldek or Maldekian beings ascended and were harvested from the planet Mars onto your planet when they destroyed their environment and found it no longer habitable. They needed a similar environment that you call Earth and harvested themselves and their own etheric and physical DNA. And they began to create themselves through other elemental beings that were already on your planet. They worked in this creation process and, of course, created constructs of bodies and breathed life into them with the elements that were upon your planet, creating a being that you may now call various versions of Sasquatchian or Bigfoot in nature. Hopefully that answers at least one of the many ways that life began on your planet.
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are the entities that humans are made of, are they still in existence?
We'd say at this point in your time-space continuum that they are within an invisible density system. They chose to stay and to keep the guardians and to keep certain nature of guardianship upon the inner planes of Earth existence. They are masters of invisibility. And of course, you have then called them by your own vibratory sound name complex as Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yeti or various names, but they are there and they are masters of the cloak of invisibility and masters of what you call magic.
Are they still influencing us?
They do not have that degree of distortion of law of one that you call free will. However, they protect the distortion of law of one that you call free will. They protect that which you call your sovereignty, and they allow it to be shielded so that there can be no negative or harmful influence from other beings that began to arrive on your planet to do just that.
So the next question you've already dug in so deeply into, but I'm going to ask anyway, just in case there's additional information. Who were the first beings on Earth and where are they from?
Again, we would need to count that, and it would require so much of a nature of time in the time-space continuum of everyone listening that it is not possible to work within one sitting. But we will start with the nature of Venusians and Maldekians, if you will, in this sound vibratory complex or name. And again, you also had evolutionary process of beings, and some of them were called Aman, some of them were called Anak, some of them were called Anki and Anlil, some of them were called Venusians. And then from this point on, in space-time continuum, in your creative process, you begin to call them Lemurian and Atlantean and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Have you noticed if ascension in this particular lifetime and Earth cycle is different from the times of your ancestors on Earth?
Well, it's funny that you should ask. Of course, we notice that it's different, but it's almost impossible to describe when humans are seeking but one truth, which is the paradox of oneness. There is one truth, and that truth is that all paths lead to the same thing. However, in a creative environment, there are 7 various beings that have been on the planet since millions of years. This planet is not thousands of years old. It is millions of years old. And with that in mind, there, if you will, can potentially be 7 at the very minimum, 7 ways throughout your world to ascend or realize or become enlightened, if you will, which is the word that you commonly use in your sound vibratory complex. So you can imagine with the chart that we have listed that is in this class material that there are many, many ways, yet humanity is still seeking to lift their flag of truth and this belief system, this idea, if you will, that there could be one philosophy, one religion, one way of ascension, when you have created 7 varying types of ascension. So the sooner we can understand that you have created several forms of chaos to get back to oneness, the sooner we can understand that all 7 forms of creative chaos are indeed accurate and can be accepted.
You mentioned that
and it's the first time you've done it on your planet. It's exciting and somewhat frustrating for the council.
You mentioned that all paths lead to the same thing. Can you expand on that?
Let's look at the law of one. It's quite simple, if you will. It means that all creation is from oneness. There is the spirit or essence of oneness, and there are various distortions of this oneness. The first distortion is that which you call love. The second distortion of oneness is that which you call free will. From this second distortion of that which you call free will, there are 7 various other distortions of that which you call forgiveness, acceptance and trust, flow, love or compassion, joy, grace, and one other. So if you can see that and look back at the chart of material, these are the various distortions of your law of free will, which are included in the distortion of that which you call love, law of love, which embodies everything of law of one. And this is how creation is embodied fully upon your planet. When you understand fully that everything is one, all of the 7 distortions of free will can become one law.
Someone is asking, what is free will?
The law of free will is a distortion of the law of love, which essentially means that because you choose to see the light of Creator in front of you, you have various ways to love and to be loved. Because you understand this love so intricately, you wish to see this love in yourself and in others in any way that you imagine. So there are 2 ways that you primarily imagine within your free will. You have created a belief that you need, in order to love, to be allowed to serve the self. This is one law of free will. You have created a belief that you must love by serving others. This is the other law of free will. So let's repeat that. Service to self is one law of free will. You love yourself. Service to others is the other law of free will. You love another. This embodies the law of love fully to operate both in frequency and in resonance of light fully, so that oneness can thereby be remembered and embodied.
Thank you. What do we need to heal in order to work with ascension uniquely at this time on this planet?
If you could consider the chart of the pyramid that was presented through the channel prior in this class, and consider your body to be this pyramid or sacred geometrical pattern, if you will, for a moment with us. Consider that you often think that the mind is the tip of this triangle, and that the body is the center, and that the spirit is the finality that is the deeper nature. We wish for you to take this triangle and flip it around so that the point is at the bottom and the bottom is at the top, if you will. Upside down pyramid or triangle, if you will. We wish for you to understand that this is relevant fully in your complex. So that the mind is what you need to handle first. The body is what you need to handle at the secondary level of healing. And the spirit can only deeply be accomplished in its finite understanding when you incorporate healing within the mind first, then the body. Then all of the essence of spirit can be acclimated and you can embody spirit fully. Your mind is an essence that wishes to be deeply understood within the universal law of reflection. You must take everything that you view as separate in your mind within you and integrate it. Every opposite has its equal. Every equal has its opposite. Every thought has an equal and an opposite energy or pattern, if you will. And when you accept this equal or opposite pattern, you begin to integrate the mind fully. This is an internal process. Then you must perceive that there is a nature of understanding that operates within the body of others and the mind of others, and you must accept this without judgment. Thereby, everything that you have integrated in your equal and opposite pairing and accepting thereof in your mind must be reflected in how you view others. How do you view their belief systems and conditions within their emotional processes? Can you accept their beliefs without judgments, in other words? This is the full healing of the mind. There is a deeply distracting sound.
My apologies. Do you still hear it?
No. It's quite difficult to embody a channel when there are such sounds. We hope it does not return.
Okay.
We shall wait one moment. It could be within the internal constructs of this being's homing environment of that which you call sound resonance house. We shall wait. It appears to have dissipated for the time and space being. So be it. Nope. Then there it is again.
I hear it too.
We must awaken the channel. We'll be back soon.
Okay. Kitarra woke you up because there's a sound, like a certain frequency going on that's distracting her.
What is that?
You hear that?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, I can't trance with sound. It drives me crazy because it's a frequency. Do you guys hear it? I'm going to... I'll be right back. I'm going to find out what it is.
Okay. You can hear me now? I wonder if it's a vacuum.
out of trance. Sorry, guys.
Yes, you can't hear me? Oh, you can. Well, I'm excited to find out what it was. And a siren, yeah. Pull the plug. Pull what plug?
Okay. That was weird.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I was just, I don't think you can see me though. Let me.
No, we can't see you.
Oh, gracious. Okay. So, yeah, what happened was there was this, someone was turning on the hose pipe to clean something, and it had this little air leak, and that's all it took. I'm so sensitive to frequency that I literally could hear something. Like, could you guys hear it? It was crazy. It was waking me up. I'm sorry. I'm very sensitive to sound.
No,
I'm
it's okay.
gonna go back. But I had to run outside and be like, can you guys turn that off? Let's try again. Back so soon?
Welcome back.
Hi.
Okay, so we are going to jump into everyone's questions. Are you ready?
Always ready.
How do we know where we fit in on the archetype mission chart?
Let's really review that. Let's talk about this, what you call universal law of free will. We call it the universal law of chaos. There's a chaotic construct that you have created within your law of free will. That means you have 7 different choices with which to identify yourself and then to forget, remember, and lose full identity. And in the initial stages of what you call awakening, perhaps you can feel this nudge to identify with something that is an ancient construct. And then your mind, when it isn't fully integrated, which is deeply required in order to understand these creative constructs, you may then say to yourselves, well, I can identify with that construct as well. I can identify with that particular archetype. What if at some level you have been associated with any or all of the 7 constructs, and to identify with one would cause such chaos that you must then identify with another, and then another, and then another. The point that we briefly present to you today is, simply put, identification is a fun, creative factor in your evolution, but not exactly necessary. And the second point that we bring, no one can tell you who you are. You are beyond these constructs. You are simply choosing a container, if you will, for definition for the time being, because this unique ascension protocol amuses you, if you will. Again, no one can tell you who you are. That's the truth of it. And no one should. As you really begin to awaken and remember your various roles in various embodied experiences throughout the varying archetypes, you will identify with one and then another and then another and then another until you realize that you are all of them at some point or have been all of them at some point. And you will do this until you grow weary with identification. Now, this is why we call the universal law of free will complete and utter chaos. Yet you enjoy it, and simultaneously it makes you a wee bit insane, if you will. It makes you stir crazy, if you will. So if it does that, turn it off, forget about it all, and simply understand that you have been any and all of them at some point or another in your space-time continuum. We hope that we have attended to this question thoroughly.
You have, thank you. Is everyone a volunteer here on Earth?
There are some beings that have been here since the beginning of time, of what you call it at least. And within those, you grow weary that this process continues of ascension, enlightenment, realization, harvest, awakening, remembering, forgetting, so many different things and terms and vibrational complexes for this process of expanding and contraction and contracting and then expanding and then contracting and then realizing yourselves over and over again. Guardians, we are aware that you grow weary with this process. However, this is what we choose to do. And this is what many of you choose to do over and again because God wishes to see itself and hear itself and feel itself and love itself and embody itself. Are we coming closer to answering your question?
Yes. Does everyone fall under one or more of the 7 archetypes?
Everyone must, because you created yourself within such capacities of universal law, and you are understanding love. And within this wisdom, love, understanding, you feel more complete by separating yourself into 7 facets of light and then returning into sound once more. And you do this again and again. Of course, there are those who oversee this process, but many of you in this time are wandering through to help. You are helpers, volunteers, and you have wandered into bodies at this stage of ascension, if you will. And of course, you do this again and again until the unique 25,000 years cycle of ascension is thereby complete. And of course, at this time, it isn't. We do realize as a council that this seems to be a bit mundane to you at this structure, and you grow weary of the process. Thereby, we have intervened effectively so that you can maintain your free will and not feel that there's such galactic intervention from other confederations and other councils, if you will, who sought to control, enslave, entrap, and potentially destroy this beautiful planet that you call Earth. We shielded you over 75,000 years ago. And now you primarily have only yourselves to work with and no one else from which you can seek attention or shift blame when you are being concerned about your free will devices being taken over. You are creatively operating for the first time in and amongst yourselves. And of course, we, the council, can help through instruments that we call channels. And this is a unique experiment as well. The channels are having great difficulties in form to continue this experiment, which is why we must really deeply respect the bodies of channels, healers, shamans. They are communication devices, if you will. There are so many ways that we seek to help, but we absolutely cannot and will not infringe upon your law of free will in this process. You wish to evolve in 7 different ways, and you have chosen it, and thus so it is. We simply protect from other negative or neutral entity involvement. We are the council that continues to shield your planet so that you can either effectively heal or destroy yourselves. At this point, it is certainly your choice. Does this attend to the nature of your question fully?
It does. What advice do you have for channels at this time?
Channels is a delicate tipping point of the balance between mind, body, spirit. Now, there are many channels that have effectually balanced the mind and the spirit and have problems with the body. And you must honor that and work with the body. It is your deepest complex that requires integration, this channel being one of many who struggle in this regard. There are many more channels who have effectuated the awakening of the spirit and thereby have not really delved into the integration of the emotional constructs within the mind. Again, this is a deep problem because if you have not integrated the component of your mind, certainly the body will not last long on this planet. It's indeed a furthering problem in this experiment and this grand galactic library. And we're working to further accentuate deeper methodologies for healing as we have shared today. We continue to work with this channel and others who have integrated at least the spirit and the mind so that the bodies can follow along and follow suit so that lifetimes can be lengthened as opposed to shortened, but it indeed is still a problem. We will continue to teach through this channel as an instrument of this galactic experiment to give further techniques for healing of the body. And for those who haven't integrated the mind, we can work with you as well.
What are some of the most important teachings of the ancients in Lyran that we can use today to help us in living our lives and moving forward?
Using the process of the sacred geometry that we have shared with you today, the pyramid, if you will, or the sacred triangle, operating within the law of 3, which connects all 3 points of mind, body, spirit technology to return to center, which is oneness. This is the deepest tool that we can offer you that you can actually utilize at this time without so much of an intrusion within the universal law of free will. We will continue, and if these 4 protocols that we have shared today can be expanded upon at a further sitting and a further teaching, and if they are embodied fully, we will give more.
Thank you. According to Dolores Cannon, there are 3 waves of volunteers, 7 archetypes here on Earth helping with the ascension. Are all these volunteers working through personal karmic ties while also helping with the ascension?
We cannot effectively answer the nature of your question without breaking it down into at least 2 components, for it is a rather chaotic line of query. And the problem lies within that some are experiencing karmic influence, and some simply have really regurgitated the law of karma over and over so many times, yet continue to be compelled into the universal law of chaos within karma because they seek it. They seek it like a shiny object, beckoning them into the law of karma. And it is quite a chaotic and confusing route. But we honor your way of involving integration. And if this is what you seek to be, then we will give you further tools to expand thereby, because so be it, that is what you wish. And then there are a few at this point who are operating between fifth and sixth density constructs of spiritual evolution who have evolved out of karma and are primarily operating within the universal law, that which maybe you know in sound complex as Dharma. But there are only a few.
So, how can we remove ourselves from the wheel of chaos for those who are ready to?
We are going to delve deeply into this topic, but it requires more time in one sitting than this very instrument is compelled or can physically honor at this time. Again, going back to the pyramid form that we have brought forth to you and the four technologies that we discussed earlier, the fourth technology, if you can, perceive this as a unique technology when integrating your own belief systems. It's a paradoxical system, but you must understand there is an equal thought for every thought that you approve of, and there is an opposite thought within every disapproval. If you have a thought and it is pleasing to you, seek its opposite, accept that judgment as full and complete and well. If you have a thought that is not pleasing to you, seek its opposite as full and well and complete. Do this as a deeply integrated mind and emotional construct within you, and then do the same in your observations of thoughts and emotions and belief patterns that reflect from others in your earthly environment. This is a grand start. Utilizing the tool of the breath and the sound and the pyramid, you can do this more effectively.
Can you explain the difference between karmic and dharmic?
These are sound vibratory complexes. They are terms that you have created, if you will. When you have called the law of free will karma, it is a very chaotic, destructive nature that is a force of pushing against love. This other sound vibratory complex of that which you call dharma is not a pushing against, but a pulling or collapsing inward of the law of free will and love. They are both loving. One is of service to self, one is of service to others in the nature of laws.
Would it be helpful if we think of them both as neutral as opposed to thinking of karma as a negative?
Consider it as pushing against or pulling in, contracting or expanding. Dharma is expanding. Karma is contracting. This is not a nature of something being right or wrong or good or bad or positive or negative in terms of ethics or valuation systems. We simply use these sound vibratory complexes for labeling, if you will, because that is what you know, and that is what you seek, and that is how you have separated creation and creator.
I love that. That's beautiful. If you please would explain the difference between densities and dimensions.
The density level at which you operate simply means how compact or how expanded are you in particles and nanoparticulates that expand into atoms, if you will, within your physical and mental constructs. There's a certain density level upon which you have created a very complex set of an hierarchy, if you will. And this is the 7 levels of creations or archetypal existences that are inferred. Density is one thing. It is how you express in your embodiment when you are creating. Dimension. There are various density expressions within one dimension, and there are various planes of existence that hold many, many dimensional expressions. If you can consider this in the way of your head is attached to your body, and your body has arms, Your arms have a hand, your hands have fingers, and then the fingers reach out to feel, to touch, to express, to create, to evolve or devolve, to create or cause destruction, if you will. There are so many ways to create and evolve.
I am aware of this archetype somehow from before, and I'm aware of more than 3 archetypes in my presence. So I have purpose to join them together. How to join archetypes together in balance and harmony? And do we all have this 7 archetypes within us?
At some point in your time-space continuum, when you are embodying and then disembodying creator and creating thereby, you choose to express creation of creator within certain archetypes in parallel realms, if you will, of dimensionalities and in various densities within various dimensions, within various planes of existences, if you will. And this is happening not before or after, but simultaneous. This is above and outside of the construct of that which you call time. Because you have done this so many times, pun intended, you have forgotten that it all happened simultaneously. And it is all happening in the blink of an eye of Creator. And you have begun to create division and before and after the concept of a beginning and an end. And you call this life, birth, and death. We hope that you began to understand that there isn't one answer to this question. Some of you are choosing to believe that you are embodying just one particular archetype, one particular construct in this unique embodiment. And for that degree of memory and awakening, so it is. And when you began to remember other portions of other expansions of Source, you call it past lives. Yet it is happening above and beyond this hierarchical dimensional construct, this machine of time, if you will. In other words, this question can't fully be answered due to its complex nature, but you will remember all of the constructs that you are embodying in parallel existences no sooner or later than you are ready.
While traveling out of body, does the breath travel with spirit, or does the breath stay with the body while spirit travels out of body?
The breath is not of the body, hence making the question rather obsolete. Do you understand?
Yes.
The breath is of the vibratory complex, which you call spirit or essence.
Someone asks, I'm not sure if I'm meditating right. How will I know if I want to be able to connect with my higher self?
Perhaps you could remove the unhelpful construct of that which you call higher, because if you consider this vibratory complex that you call higher, then you must also consider and believe there must be a lower or less useful form of creator embodying you. Do you realize the distinct understanding of how these constructs of higher, lower, above, below can be rather chaotic and unhelpful? Just simply seek self.
If we use the technologies mentioned earlier, will that help us further deepen our meditation?
It is quite a simple start that your ancestors, if you will, when embodying on this planet, began with certain constructs that were simple. So let's keep it simple. let's understand that you have created 7 fractals of methodologies within the mind, 7 different expressions, and you must identify at least 3 out of the 7 within the universal law of 3. When you identify how you have sought outside of yourself with some level of fear-based construct in 3 different ways, you can return this law of chaos and make it simple and peaceful. Start with the mind of you, and then go into a completion and a peace when you see the mind of others. Then go into how the mind controls the body, your body first, and then recognizing the reflections of the bodies within the minds of others. Then and only then can you understand the more subtle, intricate, profound, lengthy study of that which you call vibratory complex spirit.
How is the channel right now?
The body is overwhelmed in its neurological order. There is quite a disorder in that which you call feet.
Is she comfortable enough to continue?
Barely.
Barely. So we have not much time.
That is indeed true.
Okay. Thank you. Does one always incarnate expressing the same one or the same set of archetypes? Is it possible to shift into the expression of another archetype during one lifetime?
Well, let us answer your query with another query that would indeed be rhetorical, if you will. Would you choose to deviate from an already complex, complicated, chaotic expression in order to seek an even more complex, chaotic, complicated expression of hierarchy? Perhaps not. Let's stick with the understanding of the dominant expression of creature within you. What do you identify with most in these 7 ways that you are expressing one creator? There has to be one. Let's start there. And identify and integrate all of the aspects of mind, and then all of the aspects of body, and then all of the gifts or abilities, if you will, for what you call spirit.
Thank you. Before we awaken the channel, is there anything that you'd like to say to us at this time?
In your time-space continuum, please understand that you have placed yourself in what you call a time in, not a time out. You are not being punished, and you are not punishing yourselves. But this is time to use the universal law of reflection to go deeply within and remember all that you have forgotten. But please, do not overcomplicate the path. That is all. We shall return to you at a different day, at a different time. And if you wish to speak to us more, simply say so and the channel shall honor it. I am Kitarra. I wish you peace and love and light in infinite expression of one creator, Adonai.
Thank you. We love you.
Body.
Yeah.
Hi. Hello.
She mentioned your feet were hurting.
Yeah. Plantar fasciitis in both of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
It was beautiful as always.
Thank you guys for being with us today. For those of you who have had some private mentorships or sessions with me rescheduled, please accept my deepest apologies. I really am working with the body issue right now. And I just need a lot of rest to be able to channel. So if you've had a reschedule, at least recently, just know that I did that in order to avoid burnout and to give you the best possible work with me at a later date. Okay. We might reschedule the live Q&A that is to be on Friday for a different date so that we can do some sound technologies this Friday instead. So if you see that reschedule, please know that we're just going to be switching dates between the Tier 5 sound healing and the live Q&A that's on the schedule. So you might see that coming up this week. But either way, I'll see you on Friday. And don't forget about the Dolores channeling that's coming up on May the 20th. And if you want to work with Alana, she's incredible. You can find her again at alanaheavenly.com. She's an incredible spiritual teacher and channel, and she works with a lot of different people. So I look forward to you getting to know her work a lot better as well. I'll see you guys on Friday.
Thank you. We love you.
I love you too. I'm going to go rest.